This episode of Errata Text is brought to you by Universe of Legends, where your deck is your universe. Amongst all the infinite parallel universes, those who can glimpse the space between can gain incredible power or face incredible danger. Battles break out when these universes collide, and each one puts forth everything to survive, using every resource, fighter, and dirty trick at their disposal. But those special few, the Dimensional Rangers, can take it even further beyond, pulling the strings of fate with the power of the Reaction deck. Discover yourself, weave your best plans, hold the universe's fate in the palm of your hands when you craft your very own Universe of Legends. Kickstarter for the first set, Fractured Time, begins August 1st, link in the description below. So, back when I did my tutorial video about tutorials, I talked about a lot of things, like how every turn should teach a new mechanic, how the actions of the players should make sense, and a clear tension on how a game's back and forth is going, as demonstrated when I went from a half-dead reboot to winning in a single turn. But something I missed out on during that whole thing was another factor that helps push such a tutorial over the edge into leaving an impact. And what is that thing?
Presentation!
Hello and welcome to Errata Text, the sequel series to the 7 Deadly TCG Sins, where we explore areas of game design. Ever watch a show and there's just this crazy moment happening on screen where your brain returns to monkey and you feel the need to shout incoherently while bouncing up and down? That, my friends, is the effect of a little thing called showmanship. Showmanship, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is skill at entertaining, theatrical presentation, or performance. In our case, however, it has more to do with the way you show off your game. Now, everything has its place in the realm of game design. Polished mechanics and rules with lots of depth appeal to the Johnnies and Mels and Spikes, while the spectacle and flair appeal to the Timmy and the Vorthos. But good showmanship can be leveraged for everybody. It's also something that can't really be imitated. Showmanship that sticks is the kind made with authenticity. You can tell when the work put into something comes from the heart. It's why I think so many games try to use the promise of money to generate hype, because they genuinely have no idea how to do it otherwise. And they've literally tried, and it's frightening.
The player going first skips this on their first turn.
The player going first doesn't get to do much on their first turn.
Why do they sound like that? Why are these robots trying to pretend to be human? It's kind of why a lot of games rub me the wrong way. I know I usually don't try to pick on indie titles here, but I think this might actually be my issue with Elestrals. Elestrals strikes me as a series that is going through the motions without really understanding why they need to. I mean, it's clearly trying to be sort of like Magi Nation in its visual design, but the complete lack of flavor text or other lore makes it fall a bit short. I mean, they did reach out and say that they were going to do something about the lack of lore on the individual creatures on the website. We've been talking, I don't expect it to stay this way, but it still serves as a good example. So what do I think is a case where a smidgen of good and practical showmanship helps get something off the ground in ways it never could have on its own? Well, let me tell you a story. A story about the time before time. Bionicle was a 2001 LEGO series that centered around a collection of small action figures made out of LEGO pieces. Now, you need to understand that Bionicle was far from the first time that LEGO had tried to make a colorful cadre of construction characters to be consumed by kids. Heck, it was at least their third attempt at robotic characters. So, what was the secret sauce that made Bionicle work where Slicers and Robo-Riders failed? I mean, they're the same sorts of robots that shipped in the same sorts of canisters and had the same sorts of commercials. What was this secret sauce that Bionicle possessed? Well, it all started with a comic book. In an issue of Legomania, a free LEGO-themed periodical magazine for kids, we got an entire DC comic book featuring 6 colorful heroes on the cover. It was especially compelling with this guy in the center doing like the Luke Skywalker A pose. This wasn't the only way Bionicle was presented in a compelling way, for example the legendary point-and-click Matanui Online game, but for a lot of us who stayed fans, it was this comic. Inside, we meet Kopaka, a mysterious robot man with ice powers who explores a dangerous mountain while monologuing like he was in a film noir. He grills the locals, gets attacked by a monster, and learns the essentials of the story. Kopaka is told that he is something called a Toa, that he has been called here in order to defeat a great evil, and that he must collect the masks of power in order to be able to do so. On the way to obtaining one of these masks, he encounters Pohatu, the Toa of Stone, a friendly if restless individual who briefly becomes the Robin to Kopaka's Batman, which, considering this comic was made by DC, it's good stuff. Kopaka and Pohatu have always been portrayed as this sort of odd couple, and it started here. And I mean, Kopaka's just so cool, right? Like, we get the feeling of someone cold and aloof, but his heart's clearly in the right place. He's kind underneath that icy exterior. If he's not secretly Bionicle's most popular character, he is at least a solid second place. It also established a lot of things about the setting: the island of Matanui, the shapeless evil threatening it, and a quest for our heroes to start on, along with their personalities and chemistry. Simply put, the comic book had a really good hook. Yeah, this is the repurposed Know Your Hook video. And it's not like this is a cop-out or anything. I mean, I remember this comic book from over 20 years ago. That is a darn effective hook. A hook is a way to get someone to turn their head and notice what you have on offer. Like, you might have heard of how a song has a hook, something short and memorable to get you in.
It's just one of those days.
Now, a lot of people, myself included on the initial draft of this script, think that making a good hook is as simple as a quick blurb about your game and its standout mechanic. You know, the opening paragraph of a Wikipedia page. Though, let me ask you, when has a Wikipedia page ever gotten anybody excited? No, for something like a game, a hook is something that goes beyond slick art or an interesting game mechanic. It's something to convince people that what you have is fun and interesting to engage with. A moment that makes people lean in and pay attention. I've previously pointed out the high-flying madness of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters' first ever episodes, but the later openers, which played more closely to the actual rules, also nailed this sort of hook. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX sees Jade and Yuki casually curb stomp a monster as strong as Blue Eyes White Dragon, and in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, Yuma takes a strong but highly situational card and gets it to work by creating that narrow situation himself with a bit of lateral thinking, seizing victory from the jaws of defeat. These are the card game equivalents of a musical hook, demonstrations of turnabout and depth. It's not just the existence of an interesting mechanic, but how it manifests, showing clever use of said mechanic to get out of a jam. This is why I highlighted drama in my tutorial video on tutorials, and according to the comments I got, it worked. Apparently I made Pokemon interesting for the first time to a lot of people. Says a lot about the Pokemon Company's own efforts. You don't think this is that important? Apparently Konami themselves are panicking over the fact that matches are no longer fun to spectate. If you're taking forever to finish your turn, you'd better be cooking Exodia or the game is just a drag to us normies. This is why I say that if you make a how-to-play feature for your game, it should be tightly scripted and have a dramatic moment that sells your game as fun and interesting at the climax. So many of the how-to-play videos I've seen by more amateur people are unscripted rambles that drift away from the game as a whole, overly relying on too many hot topic buzzwords, something that I call Corpo-Speak, or are a couple of robots going through the motions. Man, I remember the days where game demos were a pair of characters from the game playing against each other. Was it really that hard to get Usopp and Chopper's voice actors down for a day somewhere? I know I use the Hot Wheels Acceleracers video again and again and again, but it just has that professional wrestlers doing a product promo vibe down perfect. There we go, professional wrestling! If you want a framework for how to plan a compelling how-to-play narrative, think of it like a wrestling match. I mean, sure, the storyline may have a foregone conclusion, but before that we see the wrestlers performing authentic and impressive feats of athleticism. It is totally okay to start with the conclusion and work backwards. Have the game finish with the cool demonstration you want to happen as a hook, and work out how the players would get there, keeping in mind the rules I set in the tutorial video on tutorials. That's literally how fight choreography works. To use another sports analogy, most sports are easy for people to follow because everybody can see the ball. Make sure that the focus of what's happening doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Avoid tangents or over-explanations and just be the ball, so to say. Again, shows like Yu-Gi-Oh! Stick to what's important when presenting their games, though that's partially due to the constraints of their time limitations. Heck, boil it down to an elevator pitch. Explain the rules or lore in your game extremely briefly, then talk about a cool moment those mechanics can trigger. This is why it's a good idea to pay attention to playtests. Keep the inspiration up, avoid Corpo-Speak or bullet points. Although for the real hard mode, try making a slogan. I mean, if you're lacking in inspiration, watch some old Bionicle commercials. They really know how to sell it.
On the island of Matanui, new ultimate Borok have awakened. Borok Carl. 6 new reasons to hide.
6 new reasons to hide? Have you ever heard a more perfect sentence to sell you on something? Like I said in the Toot of Toots, show how fun your game can be. That's why people would play it after all. And going back to these Yu-Gi-Oh! Examples, they aren't just compelling mechanical hooks, but make for good narrative hooks as well. People love it when heroes break out of a tight spot, and mixing that escape with a solid demonstration of a mechanical quirk creates something only a story about a game can produce, where not only does the hero manage to land a turnabout, but you, the audience, know exactly how they did it. This is the effect of showmanship. It not only shows how cool the game is to play, but makes you believe that you can be as good as the people on screen as well. It's exciting and empowering. And there you go, another video about how you need to make your game look cool and fun. I don't know why it seems like I need to reiterate this, and honestly I feel kinda cheated here. So let's get back to the whole bonkle thing and spend some time talking about lore hooks. So, like I pointed out before, Bionicle was not the first time that LEGO tried something like this, and it was far from the last. Bionicle was one of LEGO's longest-lasting multimedia creations, exceeded only by Ninjago if memory serves, but the follow-up to Bionicle, Hero Factory, isn't nearly as well remembered. Thanks to it being the third time they tried robots in a high-tech setting, remember these two? And because of that, they tried to bring Bionicle back, and failed. I mean, the 2015 Bionicle series certainly had the look of the original Bionicle. I'd even go so far as to say the first round of sets were downright slick. But something was missing.
I didn't slip.
No longer did we get the slowly unfolding world full of mystery where the evil threats seem impossibly out of reach for even our larger-than-life heroes. Instead, everything was condensed down to less than an hour of awful flash cartoons where the Toa we know and love have been replaced by these imposters. Remember Kopaka? This is the same Kopaka from before, by the way. He just got a new look partway through the series. The cool customer with a heart of gold. You know, the Kopaka who went out of his way to cheer up Takua and who worked harder than anybody else to maintain group unity in Mask of Light? He got replaced by this petulant child. Pohatu, the cool bro you want to hang out with? He was given a total 180 in personality and made the worst character ever. And it doesn't help that the second line of sets, along with the tie-in Netflix show, were ugly and terrible. But you get it, right? The Toa from the original series, made with deep personalities and chemistry, who grew over time, fighting an evil they can hardly wrap their minds around, have been replaced by a bunch of children being ordered around by a little blue guy fighting a cranky next-door neighbor. But you see this? The hasty presentation, the horrific decay in set design, the complete lack of sincerity. The Bionicle remake was something that wore the mask of Bionicle without understanding it. It's yet another example of a company trotting out something that once was popular and wondering why it gets rejected by the people who loved the original. They think that if they go through the motions, they will get the same result. The same love, the same money, and it frustrates them to no end when it doesn't work. feels like the story of oh so many games I've seen rolled out over the past few years. I gave my more visceral opinions about my desire for authenticity in a video I put out fairly recently. There's no replacement for it. Like I mentioned before, Bionicle had a fantastic hook in the form of a comic book that not only introduced the world, but gave us a glimpse inside the heads of the characters. The Matanui online game did so much more. The online game is a point-and-click adventure, sort of a Mist Light with a bit of puzzle solving, that sees you take on the role of a Matoran, the common people of the island of Matanui who the Toa are here to protect. Not only does this have the effect of making the Toa appear larger than life, but it opens the way to learn about the world. We get to learn a lot about the Matoran in the online game. Their cultures, trades, religion, even their national sport. And it does so much more than any article or flavor text could accomplish, because you get to find, see, and talk to all of these characters yourself. It was also one full of mystery, hinting at a greater purpose and even keeping the identity of our character a secret from us until the very end. The game was free, got updates and new chapters over the course of about a year, and can still be played today thanks to the work of various chroniclers online. The fact that it was treated as part of the advertising budget and not something to try to make money on its own almost seems unthinkable today, but it really paid off for LEGO in the end. I mean, it's certainly better than, I don't know, coming up with a bunch of cool monster designs and just kinda stopping. Okay, I need to put the angry nostalgia down for a bit and try to explain my position here. I already detailed how a good mechanical hook can help sell people on a game, but a good lore hook can sell people on your entire world. These are the things that generate real spread. Things like fan art, cosplay, fan wikis, merchandising potential. It's a way for people to keep engaging with what you've made even when they aren't playing or labbing, and few things make someone turn on something faster than when someone tries to dig into something new only to discover nothing underneath. And the best part, you don't even need to work that hard to do it. You don't necessarily need a polished video game or a detailed comic book. Even something as simple as some detailed biographies, short stories, or little additional artworks can go a long way. And don't overthink it. Going back to Bionicle, the national sport Coli isn't much more than soccer as Battle Royale. I've literally played this game in Banjo-Tooie, and its successor, as seen in the movie, is basically three-way street hockey. The importance of Coli is less about the actual ins and outs of the game, and more about what its existence means to the wider world. I know what I described sounds horrifically expensive to bring to life as well, but it's actually not that hard to add a personal touch and feeling of depth to a work. Like in the last video, I talked about the drawings in the Duel Master's Manual, done with black pen and what I am now pretty sure is actually marker, not watercolor, my bad. But when it comes to a little showmanship going a long way, I'll bring back the brilliant design work that went into the playmat for Monster Club. What starts as an in-universe folded newspaper, a pretty nifty little hook, opens into an introduction of the game and story in an early 80s vibe, matching the sort of screen-tone t-shirt aesthetic the game itself has. But it's not just that. For an added hook, there is also a comic book that tells the story of a mysterious drifter with a knack for gaming and an overall conspiracy involving the games he plays. Sort of old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Meets Laughing Salesman meets Indiana Jones, and yeah, it's an intriguing story with interesting characters that hints at a greater forces being at work, as one of the characters' own relatives is in on the conspiracy to keep things hidden. And it's a really simple book, too, using only black, white, and one type of screen tone, which you can basically get for free in any decent art program. This is how you do a lore hook. Snapshots into the world, a glimpse into how the characters operate in this space, and asking many questions while providing at least one or two answers, generating a world with people that gives enough space for fans to explore your game even when they aren't playing it, like I said before. Even incorporating them into your game with things such as flavor text or recurring characters and artwork. It's this sort of thing that tends to produce more fan projects and awareness. Believe me when I say people want to know about your world. This is probably one of the hardest parts of creating specifically a trading card game, but many sorts of projects in general. As harsh as it may sound, you're making a brand now, not just a game, and so it's important to understand how to apply the tricks of other trades in order to help sell people on it. And of course, the importance of never underestimating the power of monkey. But if you're not so great at that yourself, it's not a bad idea to reach out to someone who can. If the person you're considering takes one look at a bottle of cranberry mango juice and wonders why it isn't just called Crango, you're probably on the right track. Keep these things in mind, and you too can make a better card game. Join us next time on Errata Text. Hey there guys, and thanks for watching. I know this one's been a long time coming, and I hope it lived up to the expectations. A big thanks to my Patreon subscribers, Universe of Legends, Gustavo Chappelle, Abbott Nerd, Logan Walker, Danny Bound, Dumpless, Echo Esquirus, Ilfinity, John Dolan, Cyterra TCG, Vaughn, and Worms Kodak for subscribing at the $10 and up level. Also, you can see the $5 and up people scrolling by the screen now. We have tons of fun on the Patreon. There's playtests happening nearly every day, so if you want to get involved in that, you can get access to the Discord for as little as $1. And again, a big thanks to Universe of Legends for sponsoring this video. They are longtime fans, and it's been great to work with them. If you want to see some of my best efforts on getting some showmanship going, go ahead and watch the commercial again. And yeah, thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Kodak signing off.